Scripture comes today from the Gospel according to Matthew in the 6th chapter, verses 19 to 22. It's the words of Jesus, part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. God add blessing to the reading and to the hearing of His holy word. I put on Facebook today that it's fun to talk with y'all about money because nobody takes it off if you're talking to you. It's kind of nice. In fact, you've given your offering at the business office, right? Whether you go to chapel or not, you paid for chapel. So tell your friends they've already paid for it. They might as well take advantage of it. What's the most common theme in the Bible? What is the one thing that the one word that's used more often than not, the one idea that's used more often than not than any other in the Bible is money? Isn't that weird? It's not sin or salvation. It's not even Jesus. The word money and how you spend your money and how you make your money and what you think about money and how you give your money away. That's the most common theme in all the Bible. Last spring, some of you were in a class that I taught. And we read this book. It's a good book. It's called God's Politics. Why the right gets it wrong, and the wrong doesn't get it at all. It's by Jim Wallace. Now, I know you're kind of rolling your eyes. I'm not going to talk about politics today. I'm going to talk about money. And it's a good book to read if you want to read it sometime. It's kind of dated. It was written around 2004, so a lot of it has to do with the 2004 presidential election. But the principles are good. The theories, the ideas are good. And so it's something worth reading. Right, Margot?
Yes.
She read it, so she knows it's good. And she wouldn't say otherwise. Wallace entitled is one of the chapters of his book, Budgets Are Moral Documents. And if you were in that, it was a small class, if you were in that class, you remember when I said, well, what do you think about that idea about budgets being moral documents? The class said, I haven't really thought about it in those words before, so we thought maybe it'd be something good for me to talk about here before you. In one of his chapters, Wallace, who is an evangelical social activist, he tells a story that illustrates how important money is in the Bible. He said when he was in seminary, this is about seminary students, when he was in seminary, he and a bunch of buddies got together on Friday night and did what any seminarians would do on Friday night. They got a Bible and they got a pair of scissors. And they went through the Bible and they cut out every verse that had to do with money. And what they realized when they got through cutting out all the verses having to do with money was they just had a Bible that was full of holes. A Bible that was flimsy. A Bible that no longer hung together. Because the number one theme in all of Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, the number one theme in all of Scripture is money. And how to use it, and what you do with it, and how you make it, and how you give it away. Now, yeah, that's what seminarians do on Friday nights, and they just need a life. That's all they can do. So if that's the major theme in Scripture, why is it that so many people get upset in churches when churches want to talk about money? I mean, maybe you've said this, or your parents have said this, or some friends of yours, or you've overheard somebody say, I'm not going to go back to that church, all they want is my money. It's true. We want your money. Churches want your money, but we're not the only ones, right? March of Dimes wants your money. Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Project wants your money. All kinds of Baker wants your money. All kinds of people want your money. We get nervous and we get irritated and angry and defensive When we talk about money, it is, as I told you before, the number one cause of marital strife. More people who are married fight about money than any other subject. Last spring, if you were here, you may have known this. Last spring, there was a decision by the local school board to close 2 rural schools to kind of consolidate for the purpose of saving money. And if you were here, you may have known it. If you weren't, I'm telling you, it got nasty and mean and really, really personal. A lot of name calling went on. It was about money. Lillian Daniel is an author and pastor. She serves a church just outside Chicago. She wrote this book. It's called This Odd and Wondrous Calling, the Public and Private Lives of Two Ministers. If you're interested in the ministry, this is an important book for you to read. It'd be interesting for any of you, but especially if you're interested in the ministry. She writes in the book about the day that she realized that neither she nor her family would ever tithe. They would never give 10% of their income to charity. She realized that the day she was sitting up front as a young associate pastor, she was listening to the senior pastor who was in his 50s someplace, talking about the importance of generosity, and talking about the importance of giving money away and giving money to charity. And she was young and newly married. He, the senior pastor, was in his mid-50s. His wife had recently died. His kids were grown. He was kind of an empty nester and had pretty good income because he was a senior pastor of a large church, as well as a lot of disposable income. Talking about generosity. And she was sitting there, she writes about it. She said, I was sitting there and I could not stand to hear it. I was paying off massive student loans, right? Paying for full-time daycare for my very first baby. I was seriously underpaid, she writes, and newly married. And my husband and I discovered, like most couples, that our major stresses were financial. In fact, just the night before, we'd had an argument about spending. And that argument had not ended up with any answers, but ended up with all kinds of hurt feelings. We argue about money. At home, at church, at work. Even our elected officials are arguing about money, even today, aren't they? What to do with all that's going on around us. What to do. I think the reason we argue about money is because budgets and checkbooks and credit cards are really moral documents, as the law suggests. And when we dispute each other's spending habits, we're really passing judgment on one another's moral choices. Watch a little blip from Wallace about that.